again, 613 golfers. I am glad you were able to drop in to spend some time with me on this episode of 613 Golfer Podcast. Once again, I am your host, Jeff Botter, publisher of Flagstick Golf Magazine. Well, let's get right to it. Last episode, we were getting all excited about the warmer weather. We talked about the Kevin Heim Golf Center opening up, and things were looking really, really good. Things aren't looking bad, but we took a major turn for the negative, literally, with the temperatures, and the weather got really cold again. I didn't stop the golfers from heading out to Kevin's place to hit balls, but it may have slowed things down with respect to getting things open and running a little quicker than we had planned for. No matter, if I look at the long range forecast, it does look like we're getting into double digit numbers above zero into next week, getting warmer as this week progresses. So we'll get back to those warm temperatures, and everybody will start getting really excited about golfing again. Also on the last episode, we had Chris Veldkamp from the Play Junior Golf Tour on, and we talked about the Play Junior Golf Tour and it ramping up for this year. And I got to say, the response to that interview in particular, both interviews were fantastic, but we did get an awful lot of feedback and inquiry about the Play Junior Golf Tour. We made the announcement that we'd come on board as the official media partner for the Play Junior Golf Tour for 2021, and beyond. We're sure of that. But for those people looking to get a little bit more information about it, just visit the Play Junior Golf Tour's website at pjgtour.com, and you'll see all the information you need to see there, and you might be able to drop Chris a quick email if you have any extra questions. Now, the Golf Expo wrapped up on Sunday night, and I had a chance to really get in there and tour around and see what the show was all about. And I have to say, I think they did an amazing job. I don't know the final statistics on how many people visited, and they probably don't know all of the statistics as of yet. Having talked to Greg Chambers about that. They're still tabulating things and figuring out all the analytics, but by all accounts, it was a really well-received show and got a lot of interest and a lot of traffic to the Virtual Golf Expo website. So a lot of good things happened after the last two episodes, and we're really excited to get rolling here. On this show, we're trying to introduce everyone to some different aspects of golf throughout the 613, a little bit of an education process, if you want to look at it that way, a bit of an education as to the rest of what happens outside of the norm in golf. I mean, we talk about tournaments and charity events and things like that, but there are some other things that happen, maybe behind the scenes, maybe not behind the scenes, but things that most golfers throughout the 613 wouldn't know about. So that said, we have a really great podcast lined up for this episode. A little later on, we're going to talk to Drew Lefebvre, who's the he is the tournament director of the Ottawa Valley Golf Association. He's going to give us a little bit of an update on the preliminary schedule that was released recently and some other very interesting little golf nuggets within the Ottawa Valley Golf Association that I think most of you may find very interesting. But before we get to that, every organization needs a behind the scenes person. And maybe not so much a behind the scenes in this case. There is a little bit behind the scenes, but there is some, right out front and center too. Golf professionals are no exception. Somebody that needs to kind of keep it on the rails, so to speak. My first guest in this episode of 613 Golfer is the executive director of the PGA of Canada Ottawa Zone, Carol Ann Baxter. Hello, Carol Ann, and welcome to the show.
Thank you very much on this blustery March day.
I know it is. I mentioned in my intro there that we'd started out with all these high hopes. It was 10, 11, 12 degrees. Things were melting fast. For you, things were melting fast at the driving range. I should mention to people that not only is Carol Ann the executive director of the PGA of Canada Ottawa Zone, but Carol Ann also is the owner at Archie's in Cornwall. So this is a busy time of year for you for a number of different reasons, isn't it?
is a oh kind of time, especially this year. It's been so strange, as we all know, but you kind of are coasting along and you've got those things in the back of your mind. Yeah, I get to that to-do list. I got to do this and this and this. And then March 1st hits and it's like, okay, if the weather turns, it's like, wow, we've got so much to get done. So yeah, we were out, as you said, with those mild temps. I think it got to almost 18 degrees here last Wednesday.
Insane.
And Thursday I went into Archie. So I went in 2 days from not being able to drive in the parking lot because there was so much snow, because we don't plow it in the winter, to going in Thursday, and there wasn't a speck. I couldn't believe how quickly it all went away. And, the pond was running a little bit. And so we were there working this weekend.
Nice. So it'll be ready to go. But the cold temperatures, hit back. I know even the outdoor rink in the backyard there, I kind of gave up on it when the warm temperatures came. And I'm looking at on the weekend, looking, yeah, geez, if I just threw a couple of floods on that, you could skate on it again. But it's dead now. I'm done with it. No more outdoor rink.
You had a good season with it. So you've moved it from the front yard to the backyard?
Yeah, well, when we moved to the new place, now the driveway, it's taken over in the driveway in the back there. It's not actually in the backyard; it's in the driveway.
Right. Okay.
Fortunately, we have a big enough driveway that I was able to do that. But although I don't know how well that would go over if I was using the driveway as the old house for it. Anyways, it's all good. It's all good. But we're about golf now. We got to talk about golf now. So before we get to what's happening with the Ottawa PGA, and I want to get to know a little bit more. I want our listeners and our viewers to get to know a little bit more about Carol-Ann Baxter. You began as a member of the LPGA, correct?
I did many over 25 years ago. Yes, I did.
So why don't you walk us through a little bit about how you got from there to where you are now?
Well, as you know, Jeff, and as most people who know me know that I grew up in the golf business, and my dad built a golf course when I was a tiny tot. And so I grew up in the business. However, I did sway away from there. And after graduating university, I was working actually with Price Waterhouse in Ottawa, and had a friend, many know, Bob Flero, who was the new pro at the Cornwall Country Club. So I had started playing seriously in about my early 20s after being away from the game for a while. So I hopped on the Futures Tour, and at that time, which is now the Symmetric Tour, at that time you pretty much could hop on. I don't think I get anywhere near it these days. But so I started playing a little bit more competitively, which I had never done as a youngster, and started working part-time for Bob at the Cornwall Club, because I was working kind of semi-remotely for Price Waterhouse. And in that span of a couple of years of morphing out of PWC and into golf full time and started playing more, it became apparent pretty quickly that if I wanted to earn a living at this business, that I better learn another aspect of it other than playing. Because although I loved the competitive part of it, and I'm about a 6 under on the range, when I get on the golf course, I never had the mental capacity to stay tough. And those girls are tough. Much more so than the men. I played a lot of mini tours in mixed events, and the men were much nicer to play with than the women were. But I won't name any because some are still on tour and making lots of money. So they figured out how to do it. So I joined the LPGA primarily because I wanted to teach, and I did quickly learn that you can make a good living if you educate yourself and know how to deal with people and are an effective communicator. And so that's the route that I went. Joined the LPGA. Did join the PGA for a while way back then as well. But as things have changed over the years, I've, as you know, gone back to the PGA, which is lovely, something I always wanted to do. So that's my roots in a nutshell.
Like a lot of PGA professionals, a lot of them might get into the business initially because of the playing. Right. I mean, especially when you started in it, a lot of people didn't get into the business specifically because they wanted to teach. They got into the business either for the pro shop side of it, or they got into it because they like to play.
Right.
And it wasn't until they got into it and started to realize how much was involved with one side over the other side that they found a path that they actually wanted to follow, whether it was playing because they were really good at it, or whether it was teaching because they found that that was helping people get better at this frustrating game was more important to them. Or if it was the
Right.
business side of things where, you know, they just really like merchandising and things like that. So a lot is involved with being a PGA of Canada professional. Like we just talked about, more so than probably most people think. So talk about the things that people might not know or might not understand when it comes to the being a PGA of Canada pro.
Um, Thank you for that bit of background, because you're exactly right that the role has changed over the years, and the way of, the traditional golf professional. When I got into the business, and there were a lot of pros that had been around for a long time, and you saw them as kind of the heart and soul of, I would say, the pro shop in a lot of golf courses, right? Where they did a lot of everything, where they would be teaching a little bit, but it was really that pro shop. I think that was the heart of what they did, and they owned the shop, and they had a vested interest in everything that ran out of there, as well as the people that came and went, and as well as playing. And I think what we found over the years is that specialization has become a key in many instances, right? In many occupations. And so that's one of the things that I've really noticed has changed over the years. But the other thing that it's done is, because people are specializing, it's actually broadened the employability of a lot of our members, so that now you don't just have to work in a pro shop or just at a golf course. We've got the teaching facilities, high-tech places. We've got journalists. We've got those that still certainly are playing and on tour, and now we've got fitness people who want to specialize in helping their golfers in their community get fit and stay healthy and things like that. We've got nutritionists that cross over into the golf world. So it's really been interesting to see how the dynamics of that have changed, and how the occupation as a whole has, in my opinion, gotten much better and expanded. And because of that, the PGA itself as an organization has had to change the way that it approaches membership, and how they approach who they want to bring in to attract to the profession, and how they run their educational programs as well. So it's been an interesting time to be part of the PGA. As I said, I was a member many years ago, and it was so different, and so if I dare say, old boys club mentality, and that is so totally changed now. It's been great to be part of the change, for sure.
Well, it's great. So one of the things I want to point out for people too is that even though so much has changed with the PGA, as far as the paths that you can take, because there's a lot of different arms to it now, or branches to it now, than there was before. In the past, you wanted to get in, you apprenticed, you had to do your time in the shop selling sleeves of golf balls and listening,
Right.
Talking to members and stuff. Now that still happens today, but the apprenticeship portion of it is not quite the same. However, one thing that hasn't changed is the fact that to be a part of the PGA of Canada, there's still an emphasis on playing, and because you still have to get in that way, correct?
You do, and those parameters have changed a little bit as well, and eased somewhat, because I think the PGA realized that they were missing out on a lot of really good professionals by having the entrance requirements, and specifically the playing ability, so strict. And following other golf professional organizations around the globe, the trend has been to make it not all about playing. And that actually is a direct offset or result of conversations with owners and what they wanted in their golf professional. And when they listed all of the important criteria, I think playing ability was about the 11th on the list. Being a business person now is top. Being able to teach, being able to communicate, those things as an owner, you can imagine those are much more important, because as the times have changed with golf, particularly in the 613 area, where we have an overabundance of golf course, let's call a spade a spade. It's gotten much more competitive to run the business as a business and to make money. And so with last year being maybe the exception, in that since about 2009 up until 2020, golf course owners have had to totally rethink the way that they run their businesses and the people that they employ. And as a result of that, they've demanded more from their pros, and their pros have needed to be better business people as well as golf professionals, which I think is only a positive all the way around. But back to your question, playing, yes, it still is a very important criteria, particularly in the minds of golf professionals. They hold that ability to play well near and dear. And it's a source of pride to be able to get your card, to play in. And once upon a time, you had to play out as well. And it really is kind of a badge of honor that most professionals take very seriously.
And the reason I wanted to bring that up, Carol-Ann, is that because being a golf professional, I think it's important that people understand that that you can't just, sign up to be a golf pro. I mean, lots of people have a lot of interest in golf. Lots of people are decent golfers. Lots of people are good talkers, good communicators, and think that they can teach their neighbor how to, hit a draw, hit a fade, keep it low, chip and putt.
Right.
And that's great. But I think that the reason I want to emphasize the importance of playing is because, like you said, it is a sense of pride, and the people that join the PGA as entrance level apprentices, candidates for membership.
Apprentice professionals. Apprentice professionals now. Sorry, it's changed again.
They still have to have an ability to play the game, and not just be able to talk about it.
Absolutely. And I think anybody who really thinks about it, realizes why that is important. There has to be a skill set there. And, to a certain point too, it's lead by example. And there, as you said, and I thank you for that. And no, you can't just walk off the street and say, I want to be a pro so that I can get a free set of clubs. And trust me, it has happened. It has happened. Or one of the criteria for entrance is you have to be working in the golf industry. Well, in this web world now, you get Jane or Joe that says, oh, well, I've got a golf page on, a web page that has the word golf in it. So I'm in the golf business. So it has changed in that as my role, one of the things is vetting potential members just to ensure they are who they say they are. And unfortunately, we've had to do that because we've had some people try to circumvent it. So I'm happy to say that there have been a few things from the old era that have come back. For instance, this year, if you want to apply, you have to have a letter of reference from a PGA, Class A PGA of Canada professional. And I think that's so important. I had to have 2 or 3 when I first joined. So it's, you've made yourself known. You've learned a little bit about what, in order to, have somebody write you a letter, obviously you've needed to learn a little bit about them and what they do. And hopefully you've had those conversations. So yeah, there is much more to being able to just tee it up and talk about golf or play the game. And then once you do get in, the requirements now are, as I mentioned earlier, much more specialized, which is nice because you can pick your path. But they're also quite, it's not a given that you're going to get through the system, because there's a fair bit of work you have to do as you're apprenticing and as you work your way through to become a Class A.
Well, it's a major commitment. I know, and I think you'd agree. It's a major commitment, and I got to say, you know, as I'm talking to you, that I've witnessed this firsthand. I've witnessed the process firsthand, probably very, very close to home, with my good friend and the associate publisher of this magazine, of Flagstick Magazine, Scott McLeod. Scott, I'll say, has had a passion for teaching the game for a very, very, very long time. Chose not to go down the road of, because he wanted to teach, chose not to go down the road of going with a different organization to get that. And I'm not sitting going to, you know, poke any fun or ridicule any other organizations. I'm just saying, for Scott, being a PGA of Canada professional and teaching within that organization had such a was so dear to him that he was willing to put in, while he's working full time plus. I mean, full time working for Flagstick and with me is not 40 hours a week by any stretch. But he put in the time, you know, and yes, I didn't, you know, I didn't stand in the way of it, because I wanted him to do this and it was important to him. And he put in so many hours and so much time at night doing the courses that he needed, because there's an education component that you have to have as well, you know, and he put in all that work and those hours. And I saw the results of passing the playability test. I saw the results of handing in the last assignment and getting that, you know, I am a Class A PGA of Canada professional, and now he's able to teach with that banner hanging over his head that he worked so hard to earn. And I think that's part of what I'm glad that the PGA of Canada loosened things up from what they were and created these paths that people can take to follow a direction that means the most to them, and because of that, they'll put the effort into that. You know, if they had to do it a different way, maybe they wouldn't go through it, and that would mean that the PGA would lose out, like you said, on a lot of people that would become PGA of Canada professionals. That's good for their organization.
And that's true, and especially someone like Scott and myself, we're kind of in their more towards their twilight, right? Where we have, well, not so much, but maybe the back nine. Where because I too, as I said, I was a member of the PGA for 6 years, and then I bought Archie's in 1999, and all of a sudden didn't fit the criteria just as I was about to qualify for my Class A. And I won't go into it, but I ended up leaving the organization, and it wasn't until some of those rules changed and they invited me to come back, I did. Now, I had to basically start from the beginning now, because I'm already a Class A, now a life member of the LPGA, my goodness. I got a lot of credit for that, but I still had to do some extra courses, meet the criteria, and as you said, put in the time and effort, and like Scott, did it because it was so important to me to have those credentials and to be part of the organization. And it's stories like that, like Scott's stories, that just, you know, are so great, really, as a testament to how important this is in the golf world. And I frequently remind my professionals about that they do play a very important role in not only just the, you know, the physicality of them being at a golf course, but or teaching at a facility, or teaching someone how to stretch properly, all those different things. That golfers hold them to a certain standard as well, and to have gone the route that Scott did, and to get his Class A, and I know how hard he worked at it, really does speak to how ingrained the association is in the world of golf, and I'm proud of that.
Oh, it's amazing. So I want to ask you about how the COVID-19 pandemic, when it hit, really impacted the PGA. I know it impacted the pros because a lot of them are, the courses were impacted by it. But aside from just that, we can speak of that as well. But how did it impact the PGA going forward, and how it operated?
Had a tremendous impact. And, the phrase that we used for the spring of 2020 was ready, set, stop. And because that's where we were at. We were at the gates, a few courses up here, even ready to open. For me, it looked like it was going to be one of the earliest openings we'd ever had. And March 19th, boom, everything stopped for 2 months. So we went from a state of panic with a lot of owners and golf professionals, like, what am I going to do? Because as you know, a lot of them, it's a seasonal employment. So when you're not called back for the new season, it's quite daunting. But once we did get into it, I would characterize it as a different kind of stress that we've probably never experienced before as golf professionals, because you carried the two things: the fact that golf exploded and was so busy, and you have this responsibility of keeping everybody that walks through your pro shop door, when they were allowed to come in the pro shop, safe. And so the professional's role in a lot of cases took on an entirely new form. And it's, for many of us, it's just such a blur, because it was non-stop, which was great. I mean, we've been wanting golf to have a boom for so many years, but then to get it in a situation where you're so restricted, it was a very, very taxing year on a lot of our members, for sure.
I mean, and I've, again, witnessing it firsthand. I witnessed it, even myself. I wasn't able to go and see everybody that I normally would be able to go and see. And we weren't quite into doing the Zooming stuff and the Google Meets and stuff just yet. It was very raw. And there was an adaptation period even for us, where, you're thrust into doing things that you're just not comfortable doing yet, and neither are the people that you're trying to work with. Our clients weren't ready for digital yet. We all knew it was coming, but we weren't ready for it. And I think, when I witnessed it, just across the street from my place at the Metcalf Golf Club, how they set up, and how 10 minutes, 15 minutes ahead, you had to stay in your car until it was your time to get out. It was like, and the parking lot was jammed. The golf courses were jammed with people, but these limitations and these restrictions were so intense. Wondering, can I get food? Can I not get food? Can I get a drink? Do I bring a drink? Am I allowed to practice on the putting green? Am I allowed to hit balls on the range? How long can I be there for? Like, it was just, oh, I touched the flag. What do I do now? I'm looking at 2021, and I'm thinking to myself, okay, well, we're here again. Yes, we got a vaccine on the way. Yes, people are starting to maybe feel a little bit better about everything, but we're going into this season, and we're doing the same thing again. These restrictions are still going to exist. You're still not going to be allowed to do what you were able to do in 2019. We're still going back to these 2020 rules, and it's going to be interesting to see how the landscape of the golf industry progresses through 2021 based on how we handled it and managed it in 2020 with all that knowledge.
And that you hit the nail on the head, the knowledge and the experience. And I think for most of us, we're going into it a little more relaxed now that we know, we pulled it off for a season. And like you, going back, I don't even think I answered your last question, because as the PGA, obviously my role, like you, changed dramatically. We didn't have a tour last year. We only ran 2 events. I only went to one of them. I'm so used to being out and visiting with my members and flitting around and just kind of having my fingers in the pie and know what's going on with everybody. And then boom, to have to do, as you said, everything remotely, everything digitally, it really did change from an organizational point how we did things. But to go into this year, as you said, I think now that we've all had that experience, and I can quite confidently say nothing's going to stop the golf courses from opening this year. I've been part of the We Are Golf Ontario committee, and certainly with what happened with the ski hills this year, we were very concerned that, on a dime, things could change. And that was what was happening last spring. But because we had that year under our belt, and I think because we proved to the Ontario government that, not only did we take it seriously, but we could pull it off safely. And as far as we know, there were no outbreaks as a result of golf, and we were praised as a complete body for everything from the superintendents to the club managers to the professionals and the owners, and everybody in between. The Ontario government did recognize that. So thankfully, we can enter into this season knowing that pretty much nothing's going to stop the courses from being allowed to open. Even if we go into gray, chances are that won't happen, because one of the things that has come out of this is the importance of mental health and being able to get out and get fresh air and move around. And we're just so fortunate that our business does allow for that. Golf is, kind of checks every box in terms of, although some might say it doesn't help their mental status depending on how they're playing, but for the most part, being able to get out, see people from a distance, enjoy nature, have a walk, get some exercise, all of those things. And we can do it in a touchless fashion. So I can confidently say we all know we're going to come out of the gate strong, and hopefully some of the restrictions might ease as we go along. Let's just say we don't expect it to be any more difficult than it was last season. And I know from a PGA perspective, we are certainly planning on having a full flagstick.com tour in 2021, and have secured all the courses. And of course they run differently, but at least have the opportunity for some competition amongst our members.
Which brings me to my sort of my last question, or getting close to my last question for you, is the plans for 2021. So you say the courses are secure for the flagstick.com Players Tour. And so what does the schedule look like, Carol Ann?
It's, well, we've got a great schedule, and we've actually even added an event this year at Equinel, and as a fall classic, which is great. So we are anxious to get going. We've got courses, from the valley down to the Seaway. So I think we've got a really nice mix, Brockville and Camelot and Eagle Creek. And so we've tried to kind of move it all around, and just excited to see, just from my role, if not to have seen any, well, I know everybody's that way, right? Not to have seen anybody last year, except for that one event. We did host the Zone Championship at Highlands. So I'm just so anxious to, and it's such a big part of my job, just interacting with the pros and talking to them about how their year is going and answering any questions they have. I've really missed that connection, as most people have in their COVID worlds, right?
Yeah, no, well, there's no question about that. I mean, I know even for myself, one of the reasons why I started 613 Golfer and this podcast was to reconnect Flagstick with our roots. And in 1996, we're celebrating our 25th anniversary this year. And in 1996, when I started the magazine, it was about those connections at a local and a regional level in the Flagstick region that we covered of Eastern Ontario and the capital region. And over the years, we haven't lost that connection, but we've grown so much that the size of the magnitude of what we do with under the brand Flagstick is so much bigger than just a regional golf magazine. And because we're no longer able to, at least for the time being, able to print a magazine and distribute it to all the golf courses throughout the region, that kind of pulls us away from that connection that we had, where I drive around in my van all logoed up. I mean, I drive around in a vehicle now that I don't even have logos on because I'm not going anywhere. So there's, from a budgetary point of view, why would I spend money on logos when nobody's going to see them? But so I started this podcast for the purpose of being able to use a different platform to connect. And that's why I said in the very first episode, we're not going to talk about the PGA Tour. We're not going to talk about the European Tour, or, that's not what this is about. This is about connecting with people like you and educating and teaching from a different perspective about the game of golf in our region. So for me, I've already told Scott and Joe, my plan, I want to reconnect even with the PGA of Ottawa, is to get back to going to all the events. It was kind of a bit of a joke a couple of years ago. I don't know if it was it might have been at the Zone Championship last year. I think I showed up and everybody wondered, what had happened to me, like where I disappeared to, because I just, with Scott and Joe out there doing everything, I kind of got stuck in the office and doing the business end of Flagstick and not the other end of Flagstick. So, this year I want to reconnect. I want to be out there more. So you and the other pros are going to see me at the events on the flagstick.com Players Tour more. And I'll be at a few more OVG events, and I'll be at a more charity events and be around a little bit more. And that's my plan, as a part of that reconnection. So I have another question.
Yes.
What about the Ping Challenge Cup?
Well,
is there going to be a Ping Challenge Cup? Are we planning that? Because this is a big deal. And
it's a huge deal. So for those that don't know, the Ping Challenge Cup is the Ottawa Zone, PGA Ottawa Zone's equivalent to the Ryder Cup. And if you think it isn't as important to our pros in this region as the Ryder Cup is to the PGA Tour, think again, because it is. So it pits the head professionals against the assistants or associate professionals. And we didn't get to host it last year, or the Ping didn't get to host it. And of course, Flagstick is a huge part of that event. And the one time we did get to see you, where you proved
once
that
a
you
year
really were there. So I can tell you that we have secured a date. We have secured Greyhawk. We have secured Ping, and I will be divulging a little bit of a secret, but we are also going to have women on the team this year, or a woman on each team. So we may have to think about how we're going to reconfigure it a little bit. It might not strictly be head pros, but in this world of finally opening our eyes to diversity and glass ceilings and all of those things, I think the Ping Challenge is going to change a little bit, where we will definitely have one woman. We might have two seniors this year, because we have such a strong contingent of senior players in our zone as well, that I'm really looking forward to it.
Oh, and that's exciting news. I'm glad that broke on the show. I'm really excited about having women on the teams, because we did that from the beginning. We always had one senior professional on each team, and they didn't necessarily have to. We still had the assistants and the pros, and the seniors didn't have to be an assistant, because the seniors generally aren't. They're associates. Right.
Yes.
So they're Class A pros as well, but they're not head professionals necessarily. So we always had, I think initially we had two. In the first couple of years, I think there were two, and then we went to one. So I think that's amazing that we're going to have women on the team, because I'm very excited about that. Hopefully, Scott and I can be part of that selection process. People that don't know, Scott and I, my good friend, except on that day, Scott McLeod and I were, if he manages to play his way on, if he actually plays some events, he doesn't play enough of the events to actually accumulate points to play on, because he's busy with stuff with Flagstick, but we're the captains. And we don't pick the teams, but we do form the pairings. and we can be seen in a single cart, not two separate carts, in a single cart with our coffees, driving around and pumping up our players, and it's major bragging rights. And yes, you're right, it's a big deal. It's a fun day, but if you're a head professional, the last thing that you want is for your assistant pro on the other side of the score sheet winning. And a lot of them want to play their assistant pro, so we get those requests, okay, can I play against so and so? And some of them don't want to play against their head pro because they know that their head pro is going to get in their head, and it's quite an event. And maybe when we're allowed to have spectators and stuff back, maybe we can really push and encourage people to come out and watch it, because not only is it a fun day of golf and a good competition, it's good golf. We're talking about strong golfers, and holes are being won with eagles and birdies. It's not like they're out there making a lot of bogeys. These guys can play golf, and they can play really well. So I always get pumped up and excited about it. I know Andre Boris from Ping gets really pumped up and excited about it as well. And it's a great day and a great time, and I'm glad to see it come back this year, and I'm glad to see that it add that element of a female on each team.
Yeah, we're as you said, it's such good golf, and it's for anybody who's played competitively out there, you know what a difference stroke play is to match play. So when you're only working, not only, but when you're concentrating strictly a hole at a time, it's like you said, it's a totally different game, and the level of skill and of playership sometimes out there is so much fun. And the last time we did it, Andre, I don't know if you remember, because you've done many of them. I've only done 3 or 4, I think. So we were frozen. It was cold because it's a fall event, and I remember one group of pros that had a whole cover over the cart, and they had a heater in there, and they had the coffee mugs, and so I snuck in there a couple of times just to warm up. But the other really nice thing was we actually did embrace some technology last time, so we all had it on our mobile devices, so everybody knew where everybody was at, and which is a lot of fun, because as you said, we get in the carts and we're skirting around and following people, and if we do have the opportunity, as you said, to have spectators, it's a great event to come out to for sure.
Well, Carol-Ann, I cannot express enough how glad I am that you were able to make some time to be with me on the show today and talk about the PGA of Canada and give everybody a little bit of background and knowledge about you, and a little bit of insight as to what's involved and what it takes to really become a PGA of Canada golf professional. I want to thank you so much for being on the show, and I hope that you and I can see each other outside of a Zoom video very, very soon.
Well, and I thank you for the opportunity. As you know, this is, it doesn't take much for me to talk about golf or the PGA, that's for sure. So I'm very honored to be part of this podcast, and I'm so glad, as you said, you're kind of going back to your roots, and you don't have to look far to see how rich we are in history and talent and golf courses in the 613. That's for sure.
Awesome. Well said, Carol-Ann. Thanks again.
Bye. Thanks for having me.
Well, there goes Carol-Ann Baxter, the Executive Director of the PGA of Canada Ottawa Zone. It's funny how in the past year, how much you remember the conversations that you were able to have with people face to face, the sit down discussions and so on that you were able to have with people face to face, and the ones you enjoy so much. And I can remember numerous occasions over the years, over the last 25 years, delivering magazines to Archie's in Cornwall and speaking with Carol-Ann. Every time I dropped off magazines, go in, we'd have a good chat. Sometimes she'd be out on the tee line doing some teaching, and she'd make a point of coming in and just having a quick conversation with me before I jumped back in the truck and went about my business. Carol-Ann is one of those ones that she's a journey person in the golf industry. She's covered all facets of it, from being a playing professional, being a teaching professional, working within the National Golf Course Owners Association for a period of time, and then finding her way back to her roots with the PGA of Canada, and taking on the role of executive director and really keeping things under control and in line. There's a lot of organization that goes into what they do there, and she's a perfect person to be doing that. All right, well, let's move through the show. Our next guest is from the Ottawa Valley Golf Association. He is the tournament director, one responsible for obtaining the courses, setting up the events, strongly involved in some new projects within the Ottawa Valley Golf Association that I'm sure he's going to be very eager to talk about with us. So let's welcome our next guest to the show. Welcome to the show, Drew. It's great to have you in.
Thank you for inviting me.
Hey, no problem. So we're here with Drew Lefebvre. Drew is the tournament director for the Ottawa Valley Golf Association. And as we begin to enter into a new golf season, coming off of what was an odd 2020, one of the things that's just recently been announced by the OVGA is the preliminary 2021 tournament schedule. And I noticed as I was looking through my notes, Drew, from the I printed out the schedule there, and I was looking through, and I noticed a couple of things that really caught my attention. And one of them was obviously the intersectionals are on the schedule and ready to go for 2021, and that's a pretty big deal for the OVGA, isn't it?
It's very big. That's been going on for many, many years, and it's also in the province of Quebec, throughout the province. And yeah, it's a great event. It's a great event.
Now, for those that don't know what the intersectionals is a region-wide within the Ottawa Valley Golf Association team event. It's kind of like a Ryder Cup. They're basically our match play within the groups, and it's a ladder system where you start at A and you go all the way down to, I'm not sure what it is now, but it goes down a long way, and you try to work your way year after year up the ladder. It's been going on for years and years and years in the Ottawa Valley Golf Association, and it's kind of a premier event on the schedule. So last year, obviously with COVID, it didn't happen, and it's really exciting to see that it's on the schedule, as it is exciting to see that there is a schedule and that there's courses on the schedule, and we're going to be playing some tournament golf. Now, there are a couple of new things that have been added to the schedule for 2021. Why don't you tell us a little bit about a couple of the new events?
Okay, well, we can start with the first one of the season, May 14th. We're looking at a two-person scramble, men, senior men and women, and mixed. At the Meadows. We wanted to run this last year, and it was scheduled for mid-May, but it had to be canceled because of COVID. So we're starting again this year, and it's intended to be a fun tournament. Everybody come out, play a scramble, have some fun. It's on a Friday. If you want to come out and have a beer while you're playing, that's all good. So it's just a fun format to get people into playing golf. And that tournament and a couple others, we have an incentive if you're new to playing in the OVGA tournaments, that if you're new or haven't played in the last 5 years, you get a $20 discount off your registration fee. So we're encouraging new people to come in and play in our OVGA events that way. So it's just intended to be a fun team event. So that's one big thing. Another thing, I joined the board in 2019, and I volunteered to help promote participation in the region. And I learned about the Order of Merit system. And I really hadn't paid attention to that in the past. But basically, I came up with the idea that using the Order of Merit system to earn your way into a season-ending prestigious event, which we now call the OVGA Cup, which is scheduled this year, actually August 27th at Royal Ottawa. So what I did was, if you wanted to get into that tournament, you had to play in field days and championship events to earn points to get into that, because the OVGA Cup is the top 15 men, senior men, and top 15 women. So that's how that works. So if you didn't play in the sanctioned events, which I've put on your schedule there, where you've got Order of Merit ranking points, then there's no chance of getting in. Last year was at River Meet. It was a great event. We got a great, beautiful day for it. All the players really were receptive to this new event, really appreciative of being invited to play or qualifying to play in it. We had our partner in this was Titleist. They provided each of the players with a 6-pack of Pro Vs. We had it was intended to be a shot with a full banquet. Because of COVID, we didn't have that, but we had nice presentations and great event, and looking forward to having it again this year at Royal Ottawa.
Nice. Now, one of the other events on the schedule that we should take note of is the City and District Championships,
Yeah.
Which this year happens to be celebrating a 100th anniversary of the City and District, the playing of the very first City and District Championship. Why don't you tell, you've played in a number of City and District Championships yourself. I should make note to people that Drew may be the tournament director for the Ottawa Valley Golf Association, but aside from being the owner of Golfamax indoor golf for a number of years as well. How many years has it been, Drew?
We're in 26 years now.
26 years. Drew is also a very accomplished amateur golfer, has won numerous tournaments himself. So when we talk about these events on the schedule, especially one like the City and District, Drew's been there and he's played in a number of them. So why don't you just give us a little bit of insight as to what it means for the OVGA to be celebrating and hosting, especially this year after coming off of a COVID year, being able to actually celebrate and host the 100th City and District Championship.
Well, it's very special, obviously, because it's the 100th year. I can't even recall now. Oh yeah, last year it was held at Canada. It was originally scheduled for another course, but because of COVID, things changed. And it was a great event last year, won by Dwight Reinhardt in the men's division from the Hunt Club. But I think all the competitors, the real fierce competitors, just want to get out, and this is the big championship for the region. They want to get their name on the trophy. And there are some accomplished players who've had their name on the trophy many, many times. I guess I could mention Al McGee. I think it's 7 times.
Yeah.
There are a few others, and I'm going back because I'm going through the Hall of Fame records going back 100 years. There are quite a few players who have won it 2, 3, 4 times. So it's the premium tournament in the region for sure.
Yeah, it certainly is, and it's nice that when you've got an organization like the OVGA that has such a storied history as it does, to be able to have an event like this where you're celebrating such a huge milestone. It's so great to see. And I look at the schedule, I see so many events on there that I'm familiar with, and it's exciting to see that these events are going to happen this year. Now, on that note of the 100th anniversary of the City and District, there is another 100th anniversary that actually kind of coincides with that a little bit, and 2021 actually marks the 100th anniversary of the origins of the Ottawa District of the Provincial Quebec Golf Association as well, does it not?
Yes, it does. So it's kind of special in that way. And really, Golf Quebec themselves celebrated last year as their 100th anniversary. And we sort of fell asleep at the switch here, and we weren't paying attention to the fact that it was coming up for us ourselves until just a couple of months ago. So we're still trying to formulate some plans to celebrate, but we're probably going to have some tournament banners and some media coverage on that and press releases and things of that nature. So we're hoping to make a big splash with it, but we haven't really formalized a lot of plans at this point.
Now, the Ottawa Valley Golf Association itself, I believe, was formed in 1942, was it not?
Actually, it was the Ottawa District Golf Association,
right,
around 1942. I can't remember the exact date.
Yeah.
And then in 1981, it got changed to become the Ottawa Valley Golf Association.
Right. So no, this is it's very exciting. I mean, there's a couple of really good milestones for competitive golf, organized golf in our region, and the OVGA has kind of looked at taking this 100th anniversary and putting a big stamp on it this year by doing something that probably is long overdue. And you're more or less the one I believe that sort of spearheaded getting the conversation started and moving it forward. But why don't you tell us a little bit about as much as you can tell us about what is going to be introduced this year by the OVGA.
Okay, well, when I kind of recognized that it was our 100th anniversary, the thought popped into my head, well, why not have a Hall of Fame? So I discussed it with some board members and tournament directors, and then I contacted our OVGA historian, Joe McLean, AKA Mr. Flagstick as well. And he was more than willing to help us with this. He's got records and dates and of everything that's happened in more than 100 years, detailed records. And actually Joe himself has served in past years on the Ontario Golf Hall of Fame, and I believe the Canadian PGA Hall of Fame. So he's got a lot of experience in this whole process. So he's very, very helpful. And he and I are co-chairs in this committee that we've organized. There's 5 of us, which is a nice small group. And so we're going through the process of candidates right now. A lot of them have won major events at the national level, provincial level. So there's a variety of different candidates we have, and some are going back to the early 1900s that we're considering very strongly. They'll be going in just about for sure. So it's kind of exciting, and I didn't grow up in the Ottawa region, but it's exciting for me to sort of learn about the history of golf in the region.
Well, I know for myself, I mean, we've been around for 25 years, 1 year less than you. And obviously being connected to events and things that have been going on for that period of time, we're certainly privy to a lot of things, a lot of the history of things. We've done articles in the past about the history of golf, and so there's a lot there that I think people probably because they're new golfers or haven't been in the game for very long, that they just don't know about. And I think the idea of doing a Hall of Fame is an absolutely amazing idea. It's a daunting undertaking. I'm sure of that. I haven't been involved in that side of a committee before, but I know in speaking with Joe when he joined the Ontario Golf Hall of Fame committee and was involved in that process. It's a tedious process. It's not as simple as people might think, picking people to honor. There's a lot of criteria that has to be laid out, especially when you start it fresh. I'm sure you guys didn't just start naming off names and go, oh yeah, that guy, that person, that girl there, yeah, oh, she's got to be in. That you had to lay down a pretty extensive criteria, didn't you?
Yes, we did, and we were really helped a lot by Joe himself, because he had all the information on the top players over the last 100 years at different levels, like I mentioned, national, provincial, and regional. So we've got a list of competitors, and also a list. We've got a point system to rank their performances. But it's not just competitors we're talking about. It's also builders who've contributed to the game and the growth of the game, particularly in the Ottawa region. So that's really important for us as well. I might take the moment just read you off what we've come together to call our purpose of the Hall of Fame.
Sure.
And it just says the purpose of the OVGA Hall of Fame is to acknowledge, honor, and perpetuate the memory of those who have made a significant and positive contribution to golf in the area served by the Ottawa Valley Golf Association as amateur or professional competitors, directors, officials, builders, or others. So that's our purpose. So we're working towards that purpose.
Again, I think it's great, and the fact that you have Joe involved. I mean, Joe's been with me since before I even started the magazine. Joe was a big part of why we exist, and was a big part of every issue since we started. So I obviously can't thank Joe enough for his contributions to what we've achieved. But from a historical point of view, it's Joe's thing. I mean, he loves to delve into the history and make notes of the history, and he's a collector as well, as far as old golf clubs, and is a historian on those and knows which ones are worth something and which ones aren't. So it's great that you have Joe as part of that committee, and I think it definitely will make an invaluable impact to what you guys are trying to achieve. I can't wait to now. Is there a timeline for when an announcement might be made? Now, I don't want you to give anything away because I know this is big secret stuff here, but is there a timeline that's been laid out by the committee as to when an announcement might be made?
Yeah, first, let me just say that I don't think we could make this happen if we didn't have Joe helping us. So thanks a lot to Joe. In terms of timeline, we'll probably make an announcement of the nominees and inductees midsummer. I'm thinking personally, we might announce it at the same time as the final round of the city and district. Might be an appropriate time. And we're thinking of having an actual award ceremony and for the inductees. And there could be approximately 12 people inducted into this year's first class. So, and we're thinking of having that at Royal Ottawa on the day of the OVGA Cup. And that would be very fitting as well. So we may have a presentation, award presentations there, and reception for the honorees. And so that's kind of what we're looking at doing.
Oh, this is like super exciting news for 613 Golf in 2021. This is a great thing to have happen. I'm glad you guys yourself have spearheaded this and put this in motion to make it happen. This is great news. Now, before I let you go, Drew, there's one other thing that I just wanted to dive into, because competitors are going to see something a little bit different in 2021 with respect to the scoring systems for the OVGA. The OVGA is now going to be adopting a new system, same as what Golf Canada has adopted, same as what the PGA of Canada has adopted. So why don't you tell us what's happening with the OVGA's new scoring system?
Okay, well, this is across Canada as well. So all the provinces are adopting this new system, Golf Genius. And I must say, the scoring system is part of it. And we actually haven't delved into that yet as much. But for us, it's the registration and setting up the system so that people can register the event in the proper divisions or classes, and we can organize and make the draws and the divisions, who's playing in what division and what flights and things of that nature. We're just working through the mechanics of that right now. Once we get that solved, then we'll move on to the scoring side of things. I'm not sure, the younger generation are right on it for using apps for scoring, but the older crowd aren't as quick to do that. So I'm not sure how we'll move into it. Like last year, for scoring, like historically, it's always been you have your scoring your opponent in a tournament, and you have to sign off your scorecards and everything else. Well, last year with COVID, there was no signing of scorecards. Everybody kept track of each other's cards, but they had to verbally declare the cards and not sign them or exchange them back. So nobody was touching the cards. Once you had a fellow competitor's card, you kept it. You announced his score to the scoring center. Everybody agreed on it, and we would just discard the card in a box in case there were disputes for later. So I'm not sure yet exactly how the scoring is going to work. And personally, at my club, they've started using Golf Genius as well, but I'm one of the dinosaurs who haven't really latched onto it yet. So that's the situation there.
No, I was just mentioning, I just wanted to mention that Golf Genius has become somewhat of the industry standard for scoring. And I know with us, the Flagstick Open, we've been using it primarily because of what you mentioned there with the registration side of it, that, we can always score an event the old traditional way with a score sheet and a Sharpie marker, but registering people for events it's become more and more important that we be able to take those registrations online, so that we, for some, it's getting the money in the bank right away, which is what setups like that allow us to do. It's being able to track everything about a player. It's being able to get their email address into the system so that when you send out a draw, you can send the draw directly to everybody with the click of a button. And systems like Golf Genius allow us to do that with relative ease. And I know for us, with the Flagstick Open, it's an invaluable tool, and I'm sure that it is and will be for the OVGA going forward.
Yes, for sure. In our case, we have different kinds of tournaments. We have team events, we have mixed events, and our medal and match play events, and they're all kind of different in terms of how we do the draw and flights within the draws, like whether it's men or women or mixed. So they're a little bit complicated. I mean, the software is there, the system is there to do it, but we have to learn how to do it, which buttons to click on and things like that. So there's a little bit of a learning curve. Once we get over that learning curve, I'm sure it's going to run smooth.
Well, Drew, it sounds like there certainly are some really exciting things happening with the OVGA in 2021. It sounds like it's going to be a really wound up and an exciting year for you guys, and I cannot wait to see that list of nominees and inductees for the OVGA Golf Hall of Fame. Thank you very much. I know you're a busy guy, so thank you very much for taking some time today to talk to me and to get some of the information out to everybody. I hope you have a wonderful day. Thanks very much.
Thank you. It was a pleasure.
Well, that certainly is exciting news from the Ottawa Valley Golf Association regarding 2021. An Ottawa Valley Golf Association Hall of Fame. That is really exciting stuff. Anytime there's a Hall of Fame that is launched, it's so exciting for people to have an opportunity to look and see who's been nominated and ultimately who's been inducted. And when it's close to home like this one is to our 613 area, you'll be able to check out that induction list and see there's probably some people on that list that you've played golf with, that you've been members at your current club or a former club with. So it'll be really exciting over the long term to see how that list propagates and that Hall of Fame grows. So great stuff by the OVGA. It's also great to see a full schedule back up and running with a couple of new events on it. It's awesome to see the intersectionals back. The intersectionals are the pinnacle of the amateur golf tournament schedule, always have been. Very exciting to see what happens with that. A full slate back. Women, men's, and junior intersectionals are back. So that's going to be awesome. It's also awesome to see that the PGA of Canada Ottawa Zone has got a full schedule back up and running for this year after having a limited schedule last year. Another new event there in the fall. And what's even more exciting, particularly for myself, and I'm sure for my associate publisher, Scott McLeod, is to see the Ping Challenge Cup back again this year. It's a very exciting event for us. We get to set the pairings for those teams. We're a part of that event, and there's bragging rights involved. And Scott would tell you the same thing I do. It's nice at the end of the day to be the one standing at the podium, accepting that trophy, that Ping Challenge Cup, on behalf of your team. For me, it's the head professionals. For Scott, it's the assistant professionals. And what a great addition to this year to have ladies added to the rosters. Probably should have done it before now, but regardless, it's great that we're doing it now. And that's really going to round out each team's roster and make for some exciting golf. So that's going to be great. Now, next episode of the podcast, we're going to have Scott McLeod back on, and Scott's going to be doing his new feature report, which we'll try to have him on at least once a month. One episode a month to do a feature report, 613 Golf Report, golf news and information from around the 613, the National Capital Region and Eastern Ontario, giving us an update on events that are happening, on changes in the region with respect to pros being at what clubs and things like that. So it should be a neat little feature, a neat little segment, we'll call it, that we're going to be adding to the podcast once a month with Scott McLeod. To give him on here a little bit more often. We love to hear from Scott. We're hoping to get some preseason golf instruction for you. Tune in your game a little bit before the season starts and when you're getting out to the driving range. And so it should be a pretty good podcast for us next week. A couple of new guests. So that's about it for me. That's a wrap for me for this episode. I remind you again to visit flagstick.com. check out this podcast and in its audio and video form. Check out T-Talk podcast as well. It's a little different than this podcast is, casts a much bigger net over the golf industry. I'm sure there's some really great interviews and interesting things that you'd like to hear on that podcast with Scott McLeod and Steph Tedorf. Subscribe to the audio version of this podcast on Spotify, and yes, now Apple Podcasts. We are on Apple Podcasts. I just got that notification. Excited about that. If you check this out on YouTube, which I'd love you to do, unless you can't stand to look at me, but then that's the way it goes. So check us out on YouTube, subscribe to the channel, try to get those subscriptions up for us. Click like and click the notification bell to make sure that you get notified every single time we drop a new episode of this podcast. So thanks again for spending some time with me on the 613 Golfer podcast. We will talk soon. And remember, always go for the stick.